An astrologer passing through the village foretold that Velen would live in a three-story house surrounded by many acres of garden. At this, everybody gathered round young Velen and made fun of him. For Cooper didn't have more rag and God-forsaken family than Velen's. His father had mortgaged every bit of property he had and worked with his whole family on other people's land in return for a few annas a week. Hmm, a three-story house for a Velen indeed. But the scoffer would have congratulated the astrologer if they had seen Velen about 30 or 40 years later. He became the sole occupant of Kumar Bagh, that Palestinian house on the outskirts of Malgudi town. When he was 18, Velen left home. His father slapped his face one day for coming late with the midday meal, and, I, and he did that in the presence of others in the field. Velen put down the basket, glared at his father, and left the place. He just walked out of the village and walked on and on till he came to the town. He starved for a couple of days. He begged wherever he could and arrived in Malgudi, where, after much knocking about, an old man took him on to assist him in the laying out a garden. The garden exists only in the minds of the gardener. What they could see now was acre upon acre of weed covered land. Valen's main business consisted in destroying all the vegetation he saw. Day after day, he sat in the sun, tore up by ants the unwanted plants. And all the jungle gradually disappeared and the land stood as bare as a football field. The three sides of the land were marked off for an extensive garden, and on the rest was to build a house. By the time mangoes had sprouted, they were laying the foundation of the house. About the time the margosa sapling had shot up a couple of earths, the walls were also coming up. The flower hibiscus, chrysanthemum, jasmine, roses, and canna in the front park suddenly created a wonderland. Velen had to race with the bricklayers. He was now the chief gardener. The old man he had come to assist having suddenly fallen ill. Velen was proud of his position and responsibility. He keenly watched the progress of bricklayers and whispered to the plant as he watered them. Now look sharp, young fellow. The building is going up and up every day. If it is ready and we were in, we shall be the laughing stock of the town. He heaped the manure, aired the root, trimmed the branches, and watered the plants twice a day. On the whole, gave an impression of hustling nature, and nature seems to respond. For he did present a good sized garden to his master and his family when they came to occupy the house. The house proudly held up a dome. Balconies with intricately carved woodwork hung down from the sides of the house. Smooth, rounded pillars, deep verandas, checked marble floors, and spacious halls, ranged one behind the another, gave the house such imposing appearance that Valen asked himself, "Can any mortal live in this? I thought such mansions exist only in films." When he saw the kitchen and the dining room, he said, "Why, our whole village could be accommodated in this place alone." The house builder assist told him, "We have built bigger houses. Things costly near 2 lakhs. What is this house? It has hardly cost our master 1 lakh of rupees. It's just a little more than ordinary house. That's all." After returning to his hut, Valence sat a long time trying to grasp the vision, scope, and calculation of the builders of the house. But he felt dizzy. He went to the Margosa plant, gripped its stem with his fingers, and said, "Is this all you scraggy one? What if you wave your head so high above mine? I can put my fingers around you and shake you up like this." Grow up, little one, grow up. Grow fat. Be fit to stand beside this palace. Otherwise, I will pull you out. When the Marcosa tree came up approximately to his vision, the house had acquired a malevolence in its appearance. Successive summers and monsoon had robbed the paints on the doors and the windows and the woodwork for the brightness and the walls of the original color and had put in their place tints and shades of their own choice. And though house had lost its resplendence, it had now a more human look. Hundreds of parrots and mynas and unnamed birds lived in the branches of Margosa, and under its shade the master's great grandchildren and the younger grandchildren played and quarrelled. The master walked about leaning on a staff. The lady of the house, who had looked such a blooming creature on the inauguration day, was shrunken and grey and spent most of her time in an invalid chair on the veranda, gazing at the garden with dull eyes. Valen himself was much changed. Now he had to depend more and more upon his assistants to keep the garden in shape. He had lost his parents, his wife, and 8 children out of 14. Valen himself was much changed. Now he had to depend more and more upon his assistants to keep the garden in shape. He had lost his parents, his wife, and 8 children out of 14. He had managed to reclaim his ancestral property, which was now being looked after by his sons in law and sons. He went to the village for Pongal, New Year's, and Deepavali and brought back with him one or the others of his grandchildren, of whom he was extremely fond. Varen was perfectly content and happy. He demanded nothing more of life. As far as he could see, the people in the big house too seems to be equally at peace. One saw no reason why this good thing should not go on and on forever. But death peeped around the corner. From the servants' quarters, whispers reached the gardener in his hut that the master was very ill and lay in his room downstairs. The bedroom upstairs, so laboriously planned, had to be abandoned with the advancing age. One midnight, he was awakened and told that the master was dead. What is to happen to the garden and to me? The sons are no good, he thought at once. And his fears proved to be not entirely groundless. The sons were no good really. They stayed for a year more, quarrelled among themselves, and went away to live in another house. A year later, some other family came in as a tenant. The moment they saw Valen, they said, "Old gardener, don't be up to any tricks. We know the sort you are. We sack you if you don't behave yourself." Valen found life intolerable. These people had no regard for a garden. They walked on flower beds, children climbed the fruit trees and plucked the unripe fruits, and they dug pits on the garden pots. Valen had no courage to protest. They ordered him about, sent him on errand, made him wash the cow, and lectured to him on how to grow a garden. He detested the whole business, often thought of throwing up his work and returning to his village. But the idea was unbearable. He could not live away from his plans. The fortune, however, soon favored him. The tenants left. The house was locked up for a few years. Occasionally, one of the sons of the late owner came round and inspected the garden. Gradually, even this ceased. They left the keys of the house with the Valen. Occasionally, A prospective tenant came down and had the house open and went away after remarking that it was in ruins, plasters were falling off in flakes, and paint on the door and windows remained only in a few small patches, and white ants were eating away all the cupboards and shelves. A year later, another tenant came, and then another, and third, and no one remained for more than a few months. And then the house acquired the reputation of being haunted. Valen was too old. His hut was leaky and he had no energy to put up new thatch. So he shifted his residence to the front of the veranda of the house. It was a deep veranda running on three sides, paved with checked marbles. The old man saw no reason why he should not live there. He had as good a right as the bats and the rats. When the mood seized him about once in a year, he opened the house and had the floor swept and scrubbed. But gradually he gave up this practice. He was too old to bother about these things. Years and years passed without any change. It came to be known as the ghost house, and people avoided it. Warren found nothing to be grumbled about in this state of affairs. It should not have gone on indefinitely, but one day a car sounded its horn angrily at the gate. Warren opened up with the keys. Have you the keys? Open the gate, commanded someone in the car. There is a small side gate, said Warren meekly. Open the big gate for the car. Valen had to fetch a spade and clear the vegetation which blocked the entrance. The gates opened on rusty hinges, creaking and groaning. They threw open all the doors and windows, went through the house, keenly examining every portion, and remarked, Did you notice the crack on the doom? The walls too are cracked. There is no other way. If we pull down the old ramshackle carefully, we may still be able to use some of the materials, though I am not at all certain that the wooden portions are not hollow inside. Heaven alone knows what madness is responsible for people building house like this. They went round the garden and said, We have to clear every bit of the jungle. All this will have to go. Some mighty person looked well up and down and said, You are the gardener, I suppose. We haven't much use for a garden now. All the trees, except half a dozen on the very boundary of the property, will have to go. We can't afford to waste a space. This flower garden, it's old fashioned and crude. Apart from that, the front portion of the site is too valuable to be wasted. The house is sold to a company. They are not going to have a garden. They are cutting down even the fruit trees. They are offering compensation to the leaseholder. They are wiping out the garden and pulling down even the building. They are going to build small house by scores without leaving a space for a blade of grass. There was much bustle and activity, much coming and going, and well retired to his old hut. When he felt tired, he laid down and slept. At other times, he went round the garden and stood gazing at his plants. He was given a fortnight's notice. Every moment of it seemed to him precious, and he would have stayed till the last second with his plant. But for the sound of an axe, which stirred him out of his afternoon nap 2 days after he was given notice. The dull noise of a blade meeting a tough surface reached his ears. He got up and rushed out. He saw four men hacking the massive trunk of a old marcosa tree. He let out a scream. Stop that! He took his staff and thrust at those who were hacking. They easily avoided the blow he aimed. What is the matter? They asked. Velen wept. This is my child. I planted it. I saw it grow. I loved it. Don't cut it down. But it is a company's order. What can we do? We shall be dismissed if we don't obey, and someone else will do it. Valen stood thinking for a while and said, will you at least do me this good turn? Give me a little time. I will bundle up my clothes and go away. After I'm gone, do what you like. They laid down their axe and waited. Presently, Velen came out of his hut with the bundle on his head. He looked at the tree cutter. You were very kind to an old man. Brothers, don't start cutting till I'm really gone far, far away. The tree cutters squatted on the ground and watched the old man go. Nearly half an hour later, his voice came from a distance, half indistinctly. Don't cut yet. I'm still within hearing. Please wait till I'm gone farther.